Okay, so for those that shave tomorrow, for those that shave regularly, there are halachot that it's important to know. The Pele Yoetz Erech Giluach brings interesting things. First, when you take a haircut, he mentions that you should try not to go to a goy barber. Why? He says that according to the Mekubalim, a goy barber, when you sit over there by him, it removes Tselem Elokim, the image of God, removes your image of God. Therefore, it's a very important thing to be makpid on this, unless there's really no barber in town that from Israel. Secondly, he mentions that if hair falls on your body, on your clothing, you should right away try to remove it. It's not good. It's also Kabbalistic ideas. Rather, it should go straight to the floor. We also have to mention when can one shave tomorrow. So Halacha says that Lamed Daled right away in the morning. We said that already. You take a haircut, shave. But can you do that before tefillah? In the morning you could, but can you do it before tefillah? There is a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that one is not allowed to do any melachot before tefillah, before he prays. And you're not allowed to eat before tefillah, lo tochlu al adam, you're not allowed to drink, only coffee, water, but try to avoid juices or milk or anything like that. A little bit milk in the coffee, that's permitted because it's batel to the coffee. So part of that is also doing a melacha. One is not permitted to do melacha in the morning before tefillah. Is shaving considered also doing melacha? So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes in Alichot Shlomo that that's also not permitted. You're not allowed to take a haircut, you're not allowed to shave. Why? It's a melacha that takes time. Anything that's very quick you could do. You could take the garbage on the way out and put it in a garbage can outside. But anything that takes time, you should try to avoid. This is also how the Ishe Israel brings. But Rishon LeZion, Rav David Yosef, permits shaving before going to tefillah. I guess he assumes that that's something that doesn't take much time. It's not considered a melacha. It's something minor that one is permitted to do. So therefore, those that want to be lenient has who to rely on. Part of taking a haircut and going to a barber, you need to be makpid, as we said yesterday, on making sure that your peat harosh is not cut in a way that is not permitted. And also, if you shave, you shave with the right means, which we'll learn today. That means that you mekayem with that these two mitzvot. Lo takifu peat roshchem. Peat roshchem we mentioned yesterday, and lo tashchit peat zkanecha. That's another mitzvah. So the Pele Yoetz says one should be mechaven when he goes to a barber, whenever he does shave or take a haircut, he should be mechaven. With that, he gains those two mitzvot. It's considered like it's a isur, it's a lav, but since he's mechaven, it's considered like he's mekayem mitzvah with that. Okay? Now, how are we supposed to shave? There's also halachot. Yesterday we spoke about taking haircut. Today about shaving. What's the permissible way to shave? There's two psukim in the Torah that speak about shaving the beard. One pasuk is in the beginning of Parashat Emor. The parasha says over there, Pe'at zekanam lo yegalechu. The lashon over here is giluach. Pe'at zekanam, the edges of your zakan, you should not shave. Lo yegalechu. Then there's another mitzvah corresponds to that in Parashat Kedoshim. Over there it says lo tashchit et pe'at zkanecha. The lashon is tashchit. You should not. Tashchit means destroy. How is that? Rashi over here explains, and he says in Parashat Emor, he says that what we learn from here, לפי שנאמר בישראל לא תשחית, יכול לכתוב במלכת וראיתני. Tashchit means that you completely destroy the beard. So therefore, cutting it with a razor is not permitted. What about if you pluck it with, let's say, a tweezer? You just pluck your beard. Is that permitted? But that also takes away the entire beard. He says over here, that's a Gemara in Makot, it says, לכך נאמר לא יגלחו, שאינו חייב אלא הדבר הקרוי גילוח ויש בו השחתה. וזהו טהר, which means it needs to have two conditions to be forbidden. One is that it needs to completely cut the entire beard, leave nothing, no hair whatsoever. Secondly, Rashi says it needs to be bederech giluach, the normal way of shaving. Taking a tweezer and plucking the hair is not normal, and therefore that would be permitted. How about using scissors, misparaim? Misparaim ke'entar. The Gemara says that can you use that? Yes. Why? Because although it's derech giluach, it's normal to use scissors to cut your beard, but it doesn't do hashchata. It leaves something, because since there's always two parts to the scissors, the bottom and the top, so when you put it against your face, something is going to stay, because the bottom part of the scissors that separates between your face and the top part of the scissors that cuts. Therefore, such a thing would be permitted. As long as something is left on the face, on the beard, you cut and you leave something, that is permitted to do. Therefore, one should see if whatever he's using leaves anything. You could feel your, after shaving, you can feel your face and see if there's something, you feel any hair, that is permitted to use. Now, we said over here that's not permitted to use a tar, a razor. Why? Because a razor does two things. It's derech giluach, and it's also mashchit. It's normal to use, derech giluach, and it's also mashchit. It completely destroys. By the way, there is a machloket. What does it mean, giluach? Rashi, we explained right now, says that it needs to be derech giluach. Derech giluach. It needs to be normal to use. Others learn that it needs to cut. It needs to use a means of cutting. There's other ways of how to remove your beard without cutting. For instance, if you use cream, you put the cream. It's called mishi, a certain cream that you put on your face, and eventually everything falls. You just use anything to remove it, everything comes out. Another way is we explain, you could use tweezer or any other means. That's not cutting the hair of the beard. So that is a machloket of what is the isur. But the Shulchan Aruch says that using both things, by the way, the Shulchan Aruch says that misparaim ke'entar is completely permitted, even though the Rambam, when he argues on Rashi, we explained, Rashi is derech giluach, Rambam says it means to cut, but using misparaim ke'entar, using scissors, the Lashon of the Rambam seems to indicate that he says that you're not obligated, you're not chayav on using misparaim ke'entar, which normally means when you say it in such a fashion that you're not obligated, that it's not permitted mid'Rabbanan. But the Shulchan Aruch argues and says that it's completely permitted, even mid'Rabbanan. One is allowed to use scissors without any issues. Okay, so now we know what you're allowed to use. You're allowed to use scissors, and you're allowed to use anything that is not leaves a little bit of hair. Once you can feel it, that's good enough. Even if you go against how the hair grows, if it grows this way, you just put your fingers towards going the other way, and you'll see that you feel something. That's good enough. And secondly, it's only asur if it's derech giluach. If you're using something else, that is permitted. The big question would be with the mechonot giluach, the machine, shaving machine. Are you allowed to use this or not? On that, there was so much discussion in previous generation whether you're allowed to use, you're not allowed to use. The first one that wrote about it is the Chafetz Chaim. He writes that one that uses shaving machine is violating this isur of the Torah. Pe'atz kanam lo egalechu. You're not allowed to use the machine. That's what he writes. Chacham Ovadia wrote a whole kunches on this. It was published on Yabi Omer Chelek Tet. And he writes that it's exaggerated. Their machines, in their time, it was not efficient at all. It would definitely leave you feeling the hair, and without any that would be permitted without any problem. There are also other poskim that argues on that. For instance, the Tshuvot VaHanagot brings from Rav Chaim Moiser Gozinski that it's permitted. He permitted to use the machine as well, although many felt that the machine is completely asur. We mentioned the Chafetz Chaim. This is how the Chazon Ish held. This is how the Minchat Yitzchak brings down. Rav Nisim Karelitz Many poskim bring leisur, it's asur. The Shevet HaLevi felt that it's a isur Torah. Chacham Ovadia writes over there about a certain sefer that wrote that it's asur to use any machine, and he mamash, like he wrote a whole poem on him, how he forbids things, and really the anhaga should be to permit things and to find people leniency, because it's things that are very, very hard to tell people that they're not allowed to shave. You can't use a razor and you can't use a machine, so what are you supposed to do? It's very, very hard to go around not shaving, and therefore he brings few leniencies. One leniency is what the Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach permits, and because he says what the razor does is that it pulls the hair together with the root, and machine only cuts without pulling the root. Now, I don't understand it at all what he means, because if anything, it goes the opposite. When you use a razor, when you use a knife, it just cuts wherever it touches. That's all. It doesn't pull the root. But when you use a machine, especially today machines, they have lift and cut, and they pull the entire hair and they cut it. So they go closer and deeper into the skin than the razor itself. But that's what he writes, and Chacham Ovadia ends up over there and says, Sfatayim Ishaku, which means he loved this svara of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, but lemaise he was matir. Moshe Feinstein felt that it's mutar because he says that machine is not cutting, but rather it's grinding, and the Isur Torah is not grinding the hair, it's only cutting. He says that if you say that this is asur, it's like it's so outrageous. It's like he gives a mashal, he gives a parable. It's like you would say you're not allowed to cut your challah on Shabbat because it's melechet kotzer. That's of course nonsense and doesn't pass, and therefore he says this is not any different. Others that would permit, they're saying that even a machine, since you're using the machine, there's something in the surface of the machine before it touches, before the cutting blades come to cut. There's something that separates between your face and the cutting blade, and that separation considered like misparaim, like the idea we said about scissors. Now, the Tshuvot V'Hanagot, Rav Moshe Steinbach writes that it really is machloket how you view the shaving. You view the isur as the result, and if that is the case, when you shave, it's very, very clean shaven, and therefore it should be asur. Or you view it as the maaseh itself, and the maaseh itself, it's similar to misparaim rather than a knife or a blade. I wrote, and there's other svarot also to be mekel. Bekitzur, Chacham Ovadia ends up that if one wants to use a machine, lechatchila, if one could leave a beard, that's the best thing. But if one can't, so at least whenever he shaves, he should not press. He should go very lightly. So this way, you're not really pulling out the entire hair and you're leaving something. By the way, if one has lift and cut, you should remove the lift and cut. I have classes showing exactly how to remove your lift and cut from the machine. So years ago, maybe like 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I made a shiur explaining in details all the shitot, going in length through every shita, and showing the leniencies that there are out there. And then I got mamash bombarded by, I posted it on Torah Anytime, and I got bombarded from some rabbis that felt that it's completely wrong. And all the poskim that I mentioned, they said that they retracted, they chozer bahem, and even Chacham Ovadia and everybody else, and they kept on calling me and sending me messages and sending me in the mail their kuntreisim that they wrote, all kind of booklets that they wrote to prove that those rabbanim retracted from their psak. Even one time a rabbi came all the way to my house. I wasn't home, but he came to my house. My eyes opened, and it's mamash became an harassment. So I'm mentioning all that to show that there are others that felt that it's mamash asur, and also mentioning that in case they hear this, I'm not getting arrested again. Chazak